The Rolex GMT family has not been this well fleshed out for several years. There are now multiple options in steel, in two-tone, and in precious metal. So in this video, we will be ranking Rolex GMT-Master IIs by how well they hold their value. All the data in this video comes from WatchCharts.com, the world's most powerful watch market research platform. Visit our website to understand high-level watch market trends, get up-to-date pricing on over 26,000 watches, and track the value of your collection. Also, if you're interested in buying and selling among fellow collectors, then we invite you to visit the WatchCharts marketplace at marketplace.watchcharts.com. We'll be structuring this video once again as a tier list, and we'll run through the various options available in steel, then in two-tone, and then finally in precious metal, and be ranking them by their value retention, which, just as a refresher, is simply the premium or the discount of a current production watch that watch trades on the secondary market for relative to its retail price. So if a watch trades over its retail price, it's going to have a positive value retention number as a percentage. If it trades below its retail price, that number is going to be negative. We publish this analysis for multiple brands and multiple watches from multiple brands on our website. So if you're interested in digging more into the numbers, I invite you to go check that out at watchcharts.com. But in this video, we'll be focusing on the GMT-Master II family. And where else to start but the progenitor of the GMT-Master family, the blue and red bezel Pepsi GMT-Master II, the 126710 BLRO, shown here on an Oyster bracelet. Just a short note on the steel references that are available in both Oyster and Jubilee bracelets. Will only be referring to the retail prices for the Oyster bracelets here, but the Jubilee bracelet variants are all at retail $200 more expensive. The market price is just shown as an average across both variants. So if you want to go check out the price for a specific variant, you can always do that on our website as well. This watch trades just under $20,000, has a retail price just under $11,000, and so has a value retention of over 84%. Which, given the way that we have defined the tiers for this video to help sort of separate out the various levels of performance, ends up in the S tier. It is the classic. You can't go wrong with this choice. If you're looking for a GMT Master, it remains far and away the most popular one, certainly in the non-precious metal category altogether. The Bruce Swain, the 126710 GRNR, was only released earlier this year, so it's been out for maybe half a year or so, has a market price of $18,500 against a retail price that's identical to the Pepsi. These are, of course, in steel, and so they will have identical prices, but with a value retention of 73%, ends up in the A tier. And the reason that we felt it necessary to distinguish the performance of this watch from the Pepsi is because the market price for the Pepsi, while having declined over the last year or so, has not declined, or even the last 6 months, has not declined nearly as much as the price for this new GRNR reference has. And that's because anytime the watch is first released, it is in short supply on the secondary market. Sellers are able to extract larger premiums, buyers are willing to pay higher premiums, and then as more supply becomes available, the prices start coming down, and that's very visible in the price history chart over the last 6 months. So all past evidence of other references indicates that this will eventually settle at a level lower than the Pepsi, and so that's why we definitely want to draw a distinction between the price of the Pepsi and this particular reference. The next one is the oddball of the bunch, the Destro or the Sprite, the 126720 VTNR, which features both the crown and the date at the 9 o'clock position on the watch instead of the conventional 3 o'clock position. That also causes a slight uptick in the retail price to $11,250, and this version is trading on the secondary market at just over $17,000 for a value retention of over 50%, which also lands it in the A tier. I think it's kind of obvious that for steel GMT Masters, there's a very strong trend of very high value retention. None of these watches so far has dropped below 50%. And in fact, even the last GMT-Master II in steel, the Batgirl, which is the current production 126710 BLNR, which also retails for $10,700, trades at $16,000, just above $16,000 on the secondary market right now, which is a value retention of plus 50%, also landing this watch in the A tier. From here on out, the value retention numbers will start to drop because the two-tone and the precious metal versions don't do quite as well as the ones in steel. The ones in steel are the most popular because they sit at a lower price point and so are relatively more accessible. They have the more strongly identified affiliation with the historical design of the GMT Master, both with the Pepsi bezel and then also to some extent with the Batgirl bezel. And then, of course, the Sprite and the Bruce Wayne are just relatively more recent. And so the market for these is still sort of, in my opinion, finding its natural setting relative to demand in the market. And so where these watches end up in the longer term, of course, is anybody's guess, but that certainly helps explain why their value retention sits where it does today. Moving on to the two-tone references, this is one that I own, the 126713 GRNR. With a retail price of $17,000, it still trades at a market price that is higher than that at around $19,000 with a value retention of plus 13%. That places it in our B tier for this list. This was released last year and is only available on a Jubilee bracelet. And like the Bruce Wayne, features a two-tone black and gray bezel, hence the GRNR suffix on the reference number. The other one, of course, which has been around since 2018, is the root beer, the 126711 CHNR, only available on an oyster bracelet, but this time in rose gold instead of yellow gold, with a retail price at $16,700 and a market price of $18,300. That's also a value retention of plus 10% and good enough for the B tier. Finally, let's look at the precious metal references, and we'll kick it off with probably the most popular or most well-known, certainly, of the precious metal references, the white gold with the meteorite dial. This is the reference 126719 BLRO-0002, and you can look up this variant specifically on our website. Once again, it was released in 2019, comes in white gold with a retail price of $44,600 and trades above that at just under $50,000 for value retention of plus 11%, also landing it in the B tier with the two previously discussed two-tone references. Released in 2023 alongside the yellow gold two-tone version. This one, which is the 126718 GRNR, again, the GRNR suffix denotes the bezel coloring, retails for $40,500 and is basically trading around its retail price on the market right now, which again lands it in the B tier. And now, unfortunately, we come to the watches that trade, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, the watches that trade below retail. So the first is the full Everose gold on an oyster bracelet, the reference 126715 CHNR, which has been around also since 2018 and retails for $42,300 and trades considerably below that at $36,100, roughly 15% below its retail price. I think the factors that help explain why this one does relatively more poorly is both the fact that it is red gold, that it has been around for as long as it has, and the fact that even the bezel does not necessarily have any real connection historically to the design language of the GMT-Master II family, other than to say that it's bicolor and it works the same way the bezel works on any other GMT-Master II. But the overall sort of visual affect of this watch is quite different from the more conventional GMT-Master IIs in the GMT-Master II family. And last but not least, the white gold, but this time with the blue dial, the reference 126719 BLRO-0003, released in 2019, the same as the meteorite dial, retails also for $42,300, the same as the Everose gold, and trades on the secondary market for $36,000. at a value retention of minus 15%. This is also the reference that Charles here at WatchCharts, the company founder, purchased on our company trip to Japan last year. So just a little sort of personal anecdote to point out that we don't always buy what we necessarily think is the most quote unquote valuable version of a watch, which we could turn around and trade out for a profit, but we simply buy also what we like. And that, of course, is also the advice that we give people whenever we are asked, which is buy what you like. And so in this picture, for instance, I'm wearing a Grand Seiko, and John, our other teammate, is wearing his Hublot. As a last sort of ending note, just the honorable mentions are the 6-digit references that are no longer in production, but are recent enough that they merit at least some mention. There is 2 versions in steel, the 116710LN, the Batman, the 116710 BLNR. The 2-tone version, the 116713LN, only available on an Oyster bracelet and with a solid black, not a bicolor bezel, but a solidly black ceramic bezel insert. And then the 2 precious metal references, the 116719 BLRO, which, if you did not know that it was white gold, looks identical to a steel Pepsi. And so in that sense is probably, out of all of the watches that we've covered here, the stealth wealth choice, as it were. And then finally, the 116718, which is also discontinued now, but also available only on an Oyster bracelet and with a solid black bezel insert, available both with a black dial and then, as shown here, with an anniversary green dial. These all trade at, certainly the steel references trade at market prices that are higher than the current generation retail prices. So if you're in the market for a GMT Master and you have the option to buy on the primary market from an authorized dealer, certainly your best bet from a value for money standpoint is still to just buy directly from a Rolex AD, because on the secondary market, even the best that you can do is the 116710LN, which trades right around the retail price of a Bruce Wayne, which is probably the most directly comparable GMT Master reference. Of course, once you factor in sales tax, depending on where exactly you're located, that equation might change by a little bit more or a little bit less, but that is the most direct comparison. And of course, why wouldn't you want to have the more modern version of the GMT Master with your own name on the box and papers and all of the other sort of fixings that come with it if you can buy this watch on the primary market? So yeah, that's the full list. And we also, for a change, covered some of our personal watches just to add some color. And hopefully you found that interesting. Let us know what your preferred GMT Master II is in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.